Some people do not see you as family. They see you as content. Remember that. I am Howard Beckett, 68 years old, retired plumber, son of a firefighter who gave his life pulling strangers out of a burning apartment building in North Minneapolis when I was 19, and the kind of man who spent 40 years crawling under houses and behind walls fixing things for people who never once thought to ask how my knees were holding up. I have hands that look like a topographic map of every emergency call I ever answered at 2 in the morning. I have a savings account with $198,000 in it that my wife Diane and I built one busted pipe and one overtime shift at a time over 3 decades. And I have a son who I love more than I have ever been able to put into proper words, which is why what happened next nearly broke me in a way that no frozen pipe or 4 a.m. call-out ever could. I want you to stay with me here, because this is the part where everything changed. It was a Tuesday evening in Nashville. I had just finished replacing the garbage disposal unit under my son's kitchen sink, a job that would have cost him about $320 if he had called a professional, which he would have had to do because my son Kyle, bless him, cannot tell a wrench from a spatula. I washed my hands, dried them on the towel hanging from the oven handle, poured myself a glass of sweet tea from the pitcher Megan always kept in the fridge, and sat down at the kitchen table. That is when my daughter-in-law walked in. Now, I need you to understand something about Megan before I go any further. Megan is not a woman who enters a room. Megan is a woman who arrives. She has a way of carrying herself that makes you feel like you have just been added to an agenda you did not know existed. She pulled out the chair directly across from me, sat down, placed her iPad flat on the table between us the way a general lays out a battle map, and folded her hands on top of it. Behind her, mounted on a tripod in the corner of the living room, a ring light glowed in a perfect circle like some kind of modern altar. There was a camera beside it. There was always a camera beside it. "Howard," she said. Not Dad. Not Pops. Not even a polite Mr. Beckett. Just Howard. Flat. Professional. Like I was a contractor she was about to negotiate terms with. I set my glass down slowly. "Megan." She turned the iPad around to face me. On the screen was a spreadsheet. Color-coded columns. Revenue projections. A pie chart. I am not making this up. A pie chart, at my own kitchen table, from my own daughter-in-law, about my own money. "Kyle and I have been talking," she said, "and we think it is time to formalize the living arrangement." "Formalize," I repeated. I have found over 68 years that repeating someone's word back to them is an excellent way to give yourself time to think and simultaneously make them uncomfortable. She did not flinch. "You have been living here for 7 months. No rent. No utilities contribution. No financial input of any kind." I looked at her steadily. "I fixed your garbage disposal 20 minutes ago," I said. "Last Thursday I recaulked both bathrooms. 2 weeks before that, I replaced the flapper valves in every toilet in this house. I buy my own groceries. I stay out of your way. What exactly needs formalizing?" She tapped the iPad screen with one manicured fingernail. "We are proposing that you invest $100,000 into the household. Think of it as a partnership. A content partnership. I want you to notice something." She said $100,000 without blinking. She knew the number. She knew it almost exactly, which means my son, my own blood, had told her what was in my savings account. That thought moved through me like cold water. "And if I say no?" I said quietly. Megan spread her hands wide, palms up, the way a real estate agent gestures at a property she is trying to sell. "Then we probably need to have an honest conversation about sustainability, Howard, about what makes sense long-term for everyone in this house." There it was, wrapped in spreadsheet language and content partnership vocabulary, but there it was. Pay up or get out. I looked past her at the living room. The ring light, the camera on the tripod, the studio backdrop folded against the wall, the softbox lights stacked in the corner. My son's home had been slowly converted into a production studio over the past 7 months, and I had watched it happen the way you watch weather change, gradually, and then all at once. Kyle was standing in the doorway to the kitchen. I know he was there because I could hear him breathing. He had that particular stillness that men get when they know something wrong is happening and have decided that silence is easier than choosing a side. He said nothing. He did absolutely nothing. The kitchen was so quiet I could hear the new garbage disposal I had just installed humming faintly beneath the sink. I did not yell. I did not argue. I did not beg. I picked up my sweet tea, finished it in 2 long swallows, rinsed the glass carefully under the faucet, placed it upside down in the drying rack the way Diane had taught me 40 years ago, because she said it kept the dust out. And I walked toward my room. "Howard," Megan called after me, her voice shifting into something that was trying very hard to sound reasonable. "We should really finish this conversation." But I had already decided the conversation was over. Some conversations do not need finishing. They need leaving. I closed my bedroom door, sat on the edge of the bed, picked up the photograph of Diane from the nightstand, the one where she is laughing in the garden with dirt on her nose and a lavender sprig behind her ear, and I held it for a long moment. "Well, sweetheart," I said quietly, "turns out I am not family anymore. I am a brand." I could almost hear her laughing. Young laugh she had, the one that meant she thought something was so absurd it had circled all the way back around to being funny. I set the photo down gently, opened my laptop, and started searching. Because here is something you should know about me. I am 68 years old. I survived 4 decades of skilled labor, 1 cardiac scare that put me on a gurney at 54, and 31 years of marriage, to a woman who could win an argument by simply rearranging my wrench set until I apologized for something I did not remember doing. I do not make decisions at midnight. I do not react. I plan. And Megan, for all her spreadsheets and pie charts, had absolutely no idea what I was about to do. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Because you need to understand how a 68-year-old retired plumber from Minneapolis ended up sitting in a house he did not own, in a city he did not choose, being handed a spreadsheet by a woman who thought his face was an investment opportunity. It started with Diane. My wife died 2 years and 7 months ago, on a Thursday morning in January, in the middle of the worst cold snap Minneapolis had seen in 11 years. 14 below zero. The kind of cold that makes your truck engine sound like it is bargaining with God just to turn over. Diane had a heart condition we had known about for years, but had managed the way Midwestern people manage most serious things, quietly, practically, and with an unspoken agreement not to make a fuss about it. She took her medication. She went to her appointments. She did not slow down, because Diane Beckett did not have a slow-down setting. She had 2 speeds, purposeful and asleep. And even when she slept, she kept a notepad on the nightstand in case she thought of something at 3 in the morning that needed doing. She grew lavender. That is the detail I always come back to. She grew lavender in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the winter tries to kill everything that is not a pine tree. She built raised beds along the south side of the house, rigged up a cold frame system out of old storm windows, and every spring those stubborn purple stalks would come back like they were making a point. The whole south wall smelled like Provence by June, because Diane decided it would. She also left the porch light on every single night I was out on a late call. 40 years. I asked her once why. She looked at me like I had asked why water was wet. "So you can find your way home, Howard. Obviously, that is love. The specific, quiet, non-negotiable kind. The kind you do not fully understand until it is gone." She died in the kitchen. I was in the basement checking a valve on the water heater because even in my own house I could not stop fixing things. I heard something fall. By the time I got up the stairs, she was on the floor beside the counter with one hand still resting on her coffee mug, as if she had simply decided to lie down for a moment. The paramedics came in 9 minutes. It did not matter. The funeral was on a Monday. Kyle flew in from Nashville. He sat beside me in the front pew, and when it was over, When everybody had gone and it was just the two of us, in that cold parking lot with our breath-making clouds, he put his arm around my shoulder and said the words that would set everything in motion. "Dad, you should not be alone in this cold. Come live with us, we have the room." I believed him. He was my son. He had tears on his face. And I was standing in 14 below weather with a house that suddenly had too many rooms and not enough sound in any of them. So I sold it. The house Diane and I had shared for 31 years. The house where I had replumbed every bathroom, built the back deck with my own hands while Diane handed me nails and told me the spacing was wrong, which it was. I sold it to a young couple who promised to take care of the lavender beds. I did not believe them, but I signed the papers anyway. I packed light. A few boxes of clothes. Diane's photograph. The one with the dirt on her nose. My father's wrench set. The one he carried on every shift at the fire station. The one they returned to my mother in a bag along with his helmet and his wedding ring. And $198,000 in savings that represented every early morning, every frozen pipe, and every 4 a.m. emergency that Diane and I had converted, dollar by dollar, into the quiet certainty that we would be all right. I moved into Kyle and Megan's spare room in Nashville on a gray afternoon in March. The room was clean. The bed was made. There was a small desk by the window. It was fine. I need you to hold that word. Fine. The first 8 months were fine. The kind of fine where you eat dinner together, but nobody talks about anything that matters. The kind of fine where you say good morning and someone responds with a nod while adjusting a ring light. The kind of fine where you fix the dishwasher, the leaking shower head, the running toilet, and the sticky sliding door, and nobody says thank you. But nobody says stop either, and you tell yourself that silence is the same as welcome, because the alternative is too painful to consider. I bought my own groceries. I cleaned up after myself. I stayed in my room most evenings. I was wallpaper, expensive wallpaper that happened to know how to fix everything in the house, but wallpaper nonetheless. And then, about 5 months in, Megan started filming. At first it was subtle. A camera on the kitchen counter I assumed was for her food videos. A microphone clipped to the shelf above the stove. Megan ran a YouTube channel about lifestyle and home content with about 50,000 subscribers, a number she mentioned often enough that I gathered it was significant to her but not yet sufficient. Then one morning, I was fixing a leak under the bathroom sink, the way I had fixed 10,000 leaks over the course of my life, and I noticed a small camera in the corner of the hallway, angled directly at the bathroom door. I thought it was a security camera. I went back to the leak. 3 weeks later, Kyle showed me something on his phone, grinning. It was a YouTube video. The thumbnail was a picture of my hands holding a pipe wrench under that sink. The title read, "Grandpa Fixes Everything." Episode 7. Bathroom Leak. Episode 7. 6 more existed. 6 videos of me, filmed without my knowledge, uploaded without my permission. I looked at the view count. 2 million. 2 million people watched me fix a sink I did not know I was being filmed fixing. Kyle smiled like this was good news. I was not proud. I was something else entirely. But I did not have a word for it yet. 2 months later, Megan sat down with her iPad and her pie chart, and my daughter-in-law saw something in those 2 million views that I could never have predicted. She did not see a man fixing a sink. She saw a product, and she wanted to own it. Stay with me, because what happened next is the part I have been waiting to tell you. Now, here is where I need you to stay with me, because what I found next changed everything I thought I knew about the woman my son married. Remember, I told you I opened my laptop that night. I did not open it to look at real estate. Not yet. First, I wanted to understand exactly what I was dealing with, because Howard Beckett does not walk away from a problem until he has measured it from every angle. That is the plumber in me. You do not start cutting pipe until you know where the water is coming from. I typed "Grandpa Fixes Everything" into the search bar. Megan's YouTube channel appeared immediately. I clicked on it and sat there, in the blue glow of the screen. scrolling through video after video of myself, my hands under a sink, my back bent over a dishwasher, my voice, recorded through a wall, humming the same hymn Diane and I used to sing on road trips. 11 videos total. 11 moments of my private life turned into content I never consented to. Total view count across all of them. Just over 4.5 million. But that is not what stopped me cold. At the bottom of the channel page, there was a small trademark symbol next to the name. I stared at it. Then I opened a new tab and searched the United States Patent and Trademark Office database. Because when you have been a licensed contractor for 40 years, you learn how to look things up that most people do not think to check. There it was. Grandpa Fixes Everything. Registered trademark. Filed 3 months before the kitchen table conversation. 3 months before Megan sat down with her iPad and her pie chart and asked me for $100,000. The applicant name was not Howard Beckett. It was Megan Elise Beckett. My name. My face. My hands. My father's wrench set visible in 6 of the 11 thumbnails. All of it. Registered under my daughter-in-law's name as her intellectual property. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because I sat with it for a very long time. She had not made a spontaneous business proposal at that kitchen table. She had been building toward it for months. The cameras were not casual. The filming was not accidental. The spreadsheet was not a suggestion. It was a closing argument. She had already built the cage. The $100,000 was just the price of the lock. She did not just want my money. She wanted to own me. I closed the laptop very slowly. Sat in the dark for a while. Then I picked up Diane's photograph and said, "Sweetheart, you would not believe this one." And then I did something that surprised even me. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so far beyond anything I had prepared myself for. That laughter was the only response my body had left. The next morning I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Richard Kessler. Richard was a semi-retired attorney in Nashville who had handled Diane's estate paperwork 2 years earlier. He was a quiet man with bifocals and a handshake that could crush a walnut. And he had the particular quality of speaking only when he had something worth saying, which made him excellent company and a very effective lawyer. I explained the situation. He listened without interrupting, which took about 12 minutes. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Howard, she filmed you without consent, used your likeness commercially without a release, and registered a trademark using your identity without authorization. You have grounds for a cease and desist, DMCA takedowns on every video, and potentially a right of publicity claim. I do not want to sue anyone, Richard," I said. "I just want the videos taken down and my name back. Then we start with DMCA," he said. "I will have the paperwork filed by end of day." The second call was to a realtor. My friend Russell. Yes, I have a Russell too. Everyone my age has a Russell. Had recommended a woman named Janet Calloway. No relation to me, just a coincidence of names in a city full of them. Janet was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who wore reading glasses on a chain around her neck and spoke in sentences that never contained a single unnecessary word. I told her what I needed. A small house. 1 story. 2 bedrooms. Something with a porch and enough wrong with it to keep me busy. Because I am a man who needs things to fix, and a house that does not need fixing is a house that does not need me. Janet sent me 3 listings by Thursday morning. I looked at all of them on paper. Crossed off 2. The third was a 1920s craftsman cottage on Lantern Hill Drive, 12 minutes across town from Kyle's place. The photos showed a porch with soft boards, a kitchen with a faucet that was clearly dripping in the picture because there was a stain on the basin, and a back fence that leaned like it had lost the will to stand up straight. Friday afternoon, I drove out to see it. The street was quiet, lined with sugar maples and old-growth oaks that had been there longer than anyone living on the block. The houses were modest, well-kept, The kind of homes built by people who understood that a house does not need to be large to be good. I parked at the curb and walked up the front path. The porch boards creaked under my weight. The railing wobbled when I touched it. The front door stuck slightly at the top, which meant the frame had shifted. Probably seasonal expansion. Easy fix. I stepped inside and stood in the living room for a long moment, listening to the house the way a doctor listens to a heartbeat. Dripping faucet in the kitchen. Gentle creak in the second bedroom floor, probably a loose subfloor nail. Draft from the back door, weather stripping needed replacing. This house had problems. Beautiful. Fixable. Honest problems. Problems that did not require a spreadsheet or a trademark filing to solve. I stood on the front porch afterward, looked out at those sugar maples, and felt something I had not felt in 2.5 years. Peace. Not the temporary kind you get from a glass of sweet tea on a quiet evening. The kind that settles into your chest and stays. The kind that says, you are allowed to stop surviving and start living. I called Janet from the porch. Cash offer, I said. No contingencies. She called me back in 2 hours. Howard, she said. And I could hear her smiling. Through the phone. It is yours. I want you to hold on to that word. Yours. Because at 68 years old, after 2.5 years of belonging nowhere, having something that is truly, legally, unquestionably yours, something no one can ask you to hand over or get out of, feels like oxygen after being held underwater. Meanwhile, the DMCA notices went out that same afternoon. 11 videos. 11 takedown requests. Richard handled it clean and quiet, which is exactly how I wanted it. By Monday morning, Grandpa Fixes Everything would begin disappearing from the internet. Megan did not know yet. Neither did Kyle. But they were about to. I waited until Tuesday evening to tell Kyle. Not because I needed more time to think. The thinking was done. The house was bought. The DMCA notices were already working their way through the system like slow-moving weather. I waited because I wanted to be standing in front of my son with every piece of my composure in place, and composure, at 68, is not something you rush. Kyle was in the living room, sitting on the couch with his laptop open, editing footage. A ring light glowed to his left. Because at some point in the last 7 months, ring lights had become as common in this house as lamps. He was wearing headphones, nodding slightly to whatever he was listening to, and for a brief moment, he looked exactly the way he had at 14, sitting on the floor in Minneapolis with his Walkman on. Diane always said that music was going to ruin his hearing. She was right about that, too. Kyle, I said. He pulled one headphone off. Hey, Dad. What's up? 6 words. That is all it took to change the geography of our family. I found a place. I will be out by the end of the month. He stared at me. The laptop screen cast a bluish light across his face, and I could see every expression cycle through him like channels on a television. Confusion first. Then surprise. Then something uncomfortably close to relief, before it was quickly replaced by concern, which is the expression people put on when they feel something they are not proud of feeling. He closed the laptop slowly. Dad, what are you talking about? I bought a house, I said. Lantern Hill Drive. 12 minutes from here. 2 bedrooms, 1 story. Good bones. Already signed. Cash. Kyle stood up. Ran one hand through his hair. A gesture I recognized, because it was mine. Diane used to say Kyle got my hands, my jaw, and my habit of touching my hair when I did not know what to do with my feelings. Dad, this is a lot. Megan was just trying to include you. The channel, the content. It is her dream. She did not mean to upset you. I looked at my son carefully. The way you look at a foundation wall when you suspect there is a crack behind the paint. Kyle, I said quietly. Did you know she trademarked my name? The room went very still. What? He said. Grandpa Fixes Everything. Your wife filed a trademark application 3 months ago. My name. my likeness. Registered under Megan Elise Beckett as sole proprietor. She built a brand around me without telling me, without asking me, and then sat at that kitchen table and asked me to pay $100,000 for the privilege of being her product. Kyle opened his mouth, closed it. His hand was still in his hair. He looked like a man who had just been told the floor he was standing on was not as solid as he thought. "I did not know about the trademark," he said finally, and his voice had gone quieter, the way voices do when the person speaking is not sure whether they are telling the truth or hoping they are. "But you knew about the videos," I said. It was not a question. He looked at the ring light, at the camera on the tripod, at the softbox lights in the corner, at the living room. That used to be a living room, and was now a production studio. He looked at all of it as if seeing it for the first time. "Dad, I thought you were okay with it. You never said anything. You never asked." That landed. His shoulders shifted the way they used to when Diane corrected him at the dinner table. Not a flinch exactly, but a settling. A small acknowledgement that he had been caught standing in the wrong place. "I will be out by the end of the month," I said again, because some sentences are worth repeating. "This is not a conversation. This is me telling you what is happening. Dad, please. Let me talk to Megan. She will take the trademark down. We can figure this out." She had 3 months to mention the trademark, Kyle. She chose not to. 7 months to ask my permission before putting me on the internet. She chose not to. And you had 7 months to wonder whether your father was comfortable being filmed without his knowledge. You chose not to wonder. He sat back down on the couch. Slowly, like the air had been taken out of him. "I did not enjoy that. I want you to know that. There is no victory in watching your son realize he failed you. There is only the heavy, complicated weight of loving someone and being disappointed by them at the same time, and those two things do not cancel each other out. They just sit side by side in your chest, taking up equal space." I turned to walk back to my room. I had said what I came to say, but I did not make it to the hallway. The bedroom door at the end of the corridor opened, and Megan stepped out. She was holding her phone. Her face was tight in the particular way that meant she had been reading something she did not like. She looked at me, then at Kyle, then back at me. Her eyes were sharp, and I recognized the energy immediately. The same energy from the kitchen table, except this time it was not wrapped in spreadsheets and partnership language. This time, it was raw. "My videos are being taken down," she said. Her voice was controlled, but only barely. The way a pot lid stays on when the water underneath is at a full boil. 11. DMCA notices. 11. Howard. That was you. I looked at her steadily. Yes. That was me. You had no right to take those down. And there it was. The sentence that told me everything I needed to know about how Megan Beckett saw the world. She had filmed me without asking, registered my name without telling me, built a business on my identity without my consent. And when I reclaimed what was mine, her first instinct was to tell me I had no right. I let the silence hold. Then I said very calmly, very clearly, the way you speak when you want every word to arrive exactly where it is aimed. You had no right to put them up. The kitchen held that silence the way a jar holds pressure. Nobody moved. The ring light in the living room hummed faintly behind us, casting its perfect circle on the wall like a halo that had lost its purpose. Megan stared at me. I stared back. And between us stood Kyle, still on the couch, still sitting, still doing the thing he had been doing since the night this whole mess started. Nothing. Then Megan did something I did not expect. She laughed. One short, sharp sound, like a door slamming. "Fine," she said. "Fine, Howard. You want to blow up everything we have been building? Go ahead. But those videos were mine. That content was mine. And you are going to regret this." I considered responding. I decided against it, not because I did not have words, but because the words I had were the kind that end relationships permanently, and despite everything, I was not ready for that yet. I turned, walked to my room, and closed the door. I sat on the bed for a while, picked up Diane's photograph, looked at the dirt on her nose, the lavender behind her ear, the laugh caught mid-breath. She said, "I am going to regret this." I told the photo. "What do you think?" Diane's frozen smile did not change, but I could hear her voice in my head, clear as a bell, saying what she always said when someone threatened something foolish. "Let them find out, Howard." I started packing that night. Over the next 2 weeks, I packed the way I had lived in that house. Quietly, methodically, one box at a time. I did not make a production of it, which felt appropriate given the household I was leaving. I wrapped Diane's photograph in a soft towel. I placed my father's wrench set in the bottom of the first box, heavy and solid, the way a foundation should be. I folded my clothes and stacked them neatly, because Diane had always said that a man who cannot fold his own shirts has no business calling himself independent. Kyle tried twice during those 2 weeks to talk to me. The first time, he knocked on my door on a Wednesday evening and said, "Dad, Megan is willing to take the trademark down if we can just sit and talk about this." I said, "That is between Megan and my lawyer, Kyle, but I appreciate you relaying the message." He stood in the doorway for a moment, then left. The second time, on a Sunday morning, he caught me in the kitchen making coffee and said, "I just want you to know that I love you, Dad, and I hate that this is happening." I looked at him and said, "I love you too, son. And I hate it too. But loving someone and allowing them to disrespect you are two different things. And I have spent too many years confusing them." He did not try a third time. Moving day was a cold Saturday at the end of the month. Late February in Nashville is not Minneapolis cold, but it has its own kind of bite, a damp chill that gets into your joints and stays there like an unwelcome opinion. I had rented a small trailer and hitched it to my pickup truck. The same truck I had driven to emergency calls for 15 years, the one with the dent in the tailgate from a water heater that got away from me in 2009. I carried my boxes out one at a time. 9 boxes total. That is what 68 years of living condenses down to. When you strip away everything, that is not essential. 9 boxes, a photograph, a wrench set, and whatever dignity you have left. Kyle came out when I was loading the 7th box. He picked up the 8th, the one with the books, and carried it to the trailer without a word. He set it down carefully, then stood in the driveway with his hands in his pockets, watching me load the last one. He looked like a man standing on a train platform watching something leave that he was not sure he wanted to catch. Megan did not come outside, but I could hear her through the bedroom window, which was cracked open about 2 inches. She was talking. Not to Kyle, not to me, to her phone, recording. I stopped and listened for a moment, and I am going to tell you what I heard because it matters. Sometimes family dynamics just do not work out, she was saying, in that particular voice she used for content. Smooth, measured, sympathetic, in a way that was engineered rather than felt. It is nobody's fault. People grow apart, and the healthiest thing you can do is honor that distance. She was making a video. She was making a reaction video about her father-in-law moving out of her house, narrating it like a wellness segment while I loaded my dead wife's photograph into a pickup truck in her driveway. I stood there for a long moment, looked at the cracked window, listened to her voice filtering through it, polished and practiced, and completely detached from the reality of what was happening 12 feet below her. Then I turned away, because some things do not deserve the energy it would take to respond to them. I set Diane's photograph on the passenger seat, buckled myself in. Kyle was still standing in the driveway, hands in his pockets, and I could see in his face the particular anguish of a man who knows he should say something important but cannot locate the words. "You did not have to do this, you know," he said. I looked at my son, this man I had taught to ride a bike, driven to his first job interview, sat beside in the emergency room when his appendix nearly burst at 20. I looked at him standing in a driveway in Nashville with his hands in his pockets and his wife upstairs narrating my departure for strangers on the internet. Neither did she, I said. I pulled out of the driveway. I did not look back. Not because I was angry, though I was. Not because I was hurt, though I was that too. I did not look back because I have learned that when you are driving towards something that matters, the rearview mirror is a luxury you cannot afford. The drive to Lantern Hill took 12 minutes. The sun was going down, painting Nashville in that bruised orange light that makes even gas stations look almost beautiful. Diane's photograph rode beside me on the passenger seat, face up, smiling at the ceiling of the truck. I turned onto Lantern Hill Drive as the last of the daylight was fading. The sugar maples along the street were bare, but they had the particular dignity of trees that know they will be beautiful again in a few months, and are not in any rush to prove it. I pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine, and sat there. My house, my porch, my leaking faucet and my soft floorboards and my crooked back fence. Mine. I stepped out of the truck and stood at the bottom of my porch steps, breathing in the cold evening air. And then I noticed something I had not seen when I visited the house before. On the porch next door, there was a light on. A warm yellow glow spilling out across the floorboards and down the steps, and in the chair beneath that light, barely visible in the gathering dark, someone was sitting. Here is something nobody tells you about starting over at 68. The first night is the loudest silence you have ever heard. Not quiet. Silence. There is a difference. Quiet is what happens when people stop talking. Silence is what happens when there is nobody left to talk to. I unloaded the trailer alone. 9 boxes, carried up the porch steps one at a time. Diane's photograph went on the nightstand first, because some things do not wait for unpacking. My father's wrench set went on the kitchen counter, because tomorrow morning I was fixing that dripping faucet before I did anything else. Then I made coffee in the old drip machine Diane and I had owned for 11 years. It made a sound like a small animal clearing its throat. And the coffee it produced was slightly too strong and slightly too hot, which is exactly how coffee should be when you are sitting alone in an empty house trying to remember what peace feels like. I took my mug to the front porch, sat on the top step because I had not yet bought chairs. An oversight I intended to correct by the weekend. The night air had that late February bite, but it was clean. No ring lights glowing through windows. No camera lenses winking from hallway corners. No muffled narrator voice turning my life into a wellness segment for strangers. Just the street. The bare sugar maples, standing patient in the dark. And a porch light, somewhere behind me, casting a warm glow across the floorboards. I had turned that light on without thinking. Walked in the front door, set down the first box, and reached for the switch the way I had reached for it in every house I had ever lived in. Diane's habit transferred to me like a gene. 40 years of leaving the light on so someone could find their way home, and now I was leaving it on for nobody, and doing it anyway. Old habits do not ask permission to stay. The porch light next door was still on. And then, from underneath that light, a voice came across the darkness. Calm, slightly amused, completely unhurried. "You the one who bought the Crawford place?" I turned. She was sitting in a rocking chair I had not noticed, wrapped in a thick cardigan the color of warm butter, holding what appeared to be a very committed cup of tea. She was looking at me with the expression of someone who has already formed an opinion and is waiting to see if you will confirm or deny it. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Howard Beckett." She nodded slowly. Rocked once. Sipped her tea with the deliberate focus of a woman who takes her tea as seriously as some people take religion. "Loretta Mae Hutchins," she said finally. "Fair warning. I keep a kitchen that never sleeps. I have opinions about everything, and I will share them whether you ask or not. And I make the best chicken pot pie in Davidson County, which is not a boast, it is a public service announcement." I smiled. It surprised me the way a sneeze surprises you, involuntary and slightly disorienting, because I had not been expecting one to be available. "Howard Beckett," I said again, because somehow I felt she deserved to hear it twice. You said that already, she observed. I know. It felt worth repeating. She tilted her head and looked at me the way someone examines a piece of furniture they are deciding whether to buy. Then something shifted in her expression. A small softening, like a door being opened 1 inch. Your porch light is on, she said. Yes, ma'am. The Crawfords never turned that light on. Not once in 4 years. My wife always left it on, I said. The words came out before I had decided whether I wanted to share them. Every night. 40 years. So I could find my way home from late calls. Loretta stopped rocking. The tea paused halfway to her mouth. I saw something move behind her eyes, a recognition that only happens between people who have lost someone and can identify the shape of that loss in another person the way a carpenter identifies wood grain from across a room. My husband Earl used to leave the back door unlocked every single night, she said quietly. Did not matter what time it was. Said he never wanted me to feel like I could not come home, no matter what kind of day I had. She paused. He died 4 years ago. Heart attack while smoking a brisket in the backyard. Went out doing exactly what he loved, which honestly tells you everything you need to know about Earl Hutchins. She said that with a smile that held equal parts grief and affection. The kind of smile that takes years to build. I am sorry, I said. I am too, she said. He made a hell of a brisket. I laughed. Out loud. The kind that catches you off guard, because you had forgotten one, was loaded. Loretta looked at me with quiet satisfaction. The way a woman does when she has achieved precisely the effect she intended. We sat there for a while. 2 people on separate porches, connected by porch lights and unlocked doors, and the particular silence that exists between people who understand what it costs to keep going after the person you were going with is gone. Then Loretta stood up, straightened her cardigan, crossed the yard, and appeared at the bottom of my steps, holding a ceramic dish covered in foil. She had apparently had it sitting beside her chair the entire time, which meant she had come prepared. I told you about the chicken pot pie, she said. I do not make statements I cannot back up. I stood and took the dish. Still warm, heavy. The kind of weight that tells you someone has put actual time into what they are handing you. You did not have to do this, I said. She looked at me with an expression I would come to know well. Patient, direct, and completely unwilling to accept unnecessary modesty. I know, she said simply. I wanted to. There is a difference. I want you to hold that line. I know. I wanted to. There is a difference. Because it landed somewhere behind my sternum and stayed there. Because for 2.5 years, every act of so-called generosity in my life had come with a condition, an expectation, an invoice, a pie chart. And here was a woman I had known for 15 minutes, handing me a chicken pot pie because she wanted to. No cameras, no spreadsheets, no trademark filings. Just a human being deciding that another human being should not eat alone on their first night in a new house. The dish is mine, she said, turning to leave. I expect it back clean. Yes, ma'am, I said. She walked back to her porch and settled into her rocking chair as if she had never left it. I went inside, sat at my kitchen table, and ate Loretta May Hutchins's chicken pot pie. It was, without exaggeration, the best I had ever tasted. When I finished, I washed the dish, dried it, and set it on the counter next to my father's wrench set. The house was still quiet, but it was no longer silent, and I did not fully understand yet what that difference was going to mean. The first week on Lantern Hill Drive, I fixed 3 things in my house and 2 things in Loretta's. By Saturday, I was buying 2 of everything at the farmer's market. I did not plan it that way. It just happened. The way most honest things do. Monday morning, 6:45. I pulled my father's wrench set from the kitchen counter and knelt under the sink. The faucet had been dripping since the inspection, a slow and steady beat that sounded like a clock running out of patience. 22 minutes later, the drip was gone. I wiped the wrench, placed it back in the canvas roll, and drank my coffee in silence. The kitchen smelled like pipe joint compound, and dark roast. Diane would have opened the window. I left it closed. Wednesday, I pulled up 2 soft porch boards near the front step. The wood crumbled when I pressed my thumb into it. Wet rot from years of standing water. I drove to Fulton's Hardware on Gallatin Pike, a store that has been open since 1971 and still uses a handwritten receipt pad. The clerk, a tall man named Carl with a gray beard and a Titan's cap, recognized me before I said a word. "You the one who bought the Crawford place?" "Howard Beckett." "Carl," he said, reaching across the counter. "Heard you paid cash." "That true?" "It is." He nodded slow. "Good boards are in aisle 7. Pressure treated. You want the number 2 grade, not the number 1. Number 1 splits in the heat." I bought 6 boards, a box of galvanized screws, and a tube of exterior caulk. Carl did not charge me for the caulk. I did not argue. Friday morning, Loretta knocked on my screen door at 7:15. She was holding a cast iron skillet in one hand and frowning at it like it owed her money. "My stove is clicking," she said. "It will not stop clicking." I followed her into the kitchen. The house smelled like cinnamon and old pine. Her stove was a 30-year-old gas range, white enamel, 4 burners, one of which had not worked since Earl died. I turned the frontal left knob. Click, 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 click. No flame. "How long has it been doing this?" 3 days. Maybe 4. I pulled the burner cap and cleaned the igniter port with a toothpick and a dry cloth. Grease buildup. Probably a year's worth. Then I checked the burner assembly. Corroded. I replaced it with a universal part I had in my truck. The kind I always kept because 38 years of plumbing teaches you that the thing you need is always the thing you forgot to bring. Last, I adjusted the gas line valve behind the range. It had been slowly loosening for what I estimated was about 18 months. Not enough to leak, enough to starve the flame. I turned the knob. Blue flame, clean and steady. "The stove did not win," I said. Loretta set a plate on the counter. Pecan pie. 1 perfect slice. Still warm from the oven. "You do not have to pay me," I said. "I know," she said. "I wanted to. There is a difference." She said that line a lot. I wanted to. There is a difference. It was her way of drawing a border between obligation and choice, between debt and generosity. Diane had a similar line. She used to say, "I am not doing this because I have to. I am doing this because I choose you." 40 years of hearing that, and I never once got tired of it. Saturday morning, I walked 2 blocks to the farmer's market at the end of Lantern Hill. It was a modest setup. 8 vendors, 2 canopy tents. A man selling sourwood honey from a folding table. A woman with a chalkboard sign that read, "Organic is just a word, but these tomatoes are real." I bought 2 jars of sourwood honey, 2 bags of dark roast coffee, a bunch of collard greens, a basket of tomatoes, and a loaf of sourdough bread. When I got home, I set 1 jar of honey and 1 bag of coffee on Loretta's porch without knocking. That evening, she appeared at my fence line while I was resetting a leaning post with a new bag of concrete mix. She was watering her 6 raised tomato beds, moving the hose slow like she was painting each plant. "You bought 2 of everything," she said. I did. Why? I thought about it longer than I should have. Because 1 is just shopping, I said. 2 is thinking about someone. She turned off the hose and looked at me the way people look at you when you have said something true without meaning to. "Howard." "Yes." "Why did you spend 40 years fixing things?" I drove the post deeper and wiped my hands on my jeans. "Because I am good at it," I said. "No," she said. "That is not why." I looked at the fence, the porch, the clean faucet through the kitchen window. "Because fixing things is how you love," she said. "That is why." I did not answer. I did not have to. She was right. The way Diane was always right. Not because she argued better, but because she paid attention longer. I finished the fence post as the sun dropped behind the tree line. Loretta went inside. Her porch light came on. Mine was already on. 2 lights on Lantern Hill Drive, burning steady. side by side. I washed my hands, dried them on the same towel I had used that morning, and sat on the porch with a jar of sourwood honey and a clean spoon. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked twice and then stopped. Satisfied, I unscrewed the lid and tasted the honey. Sweet and dark and heavy with summer. I thought about calling Kyle. I thought about it for a long time. I did not call. 3 weeks after I moved to Lantern Hill Drive, I found a letter in my mailbox that did not belong to me. It was addressed to the previous owner, Margaret Crawford, and it had been forwarded twice, once from a P.O. box in Murfreesboro and once from a nursing home in Gallatin. The envelope was thin, handwritten, and the return address said Becky Crawford, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I should have written, "Return to sender," and put it back. That is what a responsible man does. But the envelope was already open at the corner, torn by a machine somewhere between Oklahoma and Tennessee. And the first line was visible without trying. "Mama, I am sorry I did not come sooner." I read that line standing at the curb in my slippers, and I felt something shift behind my ribs. Not pain. Recognition. I had heard that sentence before. I had said it before. Standing over my father's grave in 1981, 2 years after he died, pulling a family out of a duplex fire on Portland Avenue. I was 23. I brought flowers and a wrench he had given me on my 16th birthday, and I stood there for 40 minutes talking to a stone. I put the letter on the kitchen counter next to my father's wrench set, and I did not open it further. Some doors are not yours to walk through, but the line stayed with me for the rest of the day, the way a song stays after the radio turns off. That evening, Loretta came by with a jar of tomato soup. She set it on the porch railing and looked at me the way she does when she knows something is sitting wrong. "You look like a man who read something he was not supposed to read," she said. I told her about the letter. Not all of it. Just the first line. She sat down in the second rocking chair, the one I had bought at a yard sale on Dickerson Pike for $12 because it had a wobble I knew I could fix. She rocked slow and quiet for a long time. "My husband Earl wrote me a letter once," she said. Not a love letter. A sorry letter. He had forgotten our anniversary. Not by a day. By 3 weeks. He wrote 4 pages explaining why he forgot, and on the last page he wrote, "I do not deserve you, but I am too stubborn to let you go." She laughed soft. I kept that letter in my Bible for 11 years. After he died, I moved it to the nightstand drawer so I could read it faster. We sat there for a while. 2 people on a porch holding other people's words like warm stones. The crickets started. The porch light hummed. "Howard," she said. "Yes." "Have you heard from Kyle?" "No." "Have you called him?" "No." She did not push. She just rocked. That was the thing about Loretta. She knew when a question was enough and an answer was too much. The next morning I returned the letter. I drove to the post office on Gallatin Pike, wrote "Return to sender resident deceased." Forwarding expired on the envelope and handed it to a woman behind the counter who looked at me like I had just turned in a lost wallet. She stamped it twice and set it in a bin. On the way home, I passed Kyle's neighborhood. I did not plan it. The route from the post office curves past Bellevue, and their street sits right at the bend before the highway ramp. I slowed down. The house looked the same. Gray siding, black shutters. The Japanese maple I had trimmed in September still leaning left. Megan's car was in the driveway. Kyle's truck was gone. I thought about stopping. I thought about leaving a note on the porch, something short. Maybe just my new address written on the back of a hardware receipt. But I kept driving. Not because I was angry, because I was not ready. There is a difference between holding a grudge and holding a boundary. And I was still learning which one I was doing. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I had not checked my email in 9 days. There were 47 messages, most of them junk. But one was from Richard Kessler, my attorney. Subject line: Update trademark and DMCA status. I opened it. Howard. All 11 videos have been removed from the platform. The trademark dispute is in review. Estimated timeline for resolution is 60 to 90 days. I recommend no direct contact with the opposing party during this period. Call me if anything changes. Richard, 11 videos gone. 4.5 million views erased. Megan's channel, the one she had built on my hands and my face and my name, was now 11 empty spaces where content used to be. I closed the laptop. I made coffee. I drank it on the porch and watched Loretta water her tomato beds through the fence. She waved. I waved back. Neither of us said a word. That afternoon, I walked to Fulton's Hardware and bought a new mailbox. The old one was rusted at the hinge, and the flag did not stay up. Carl, the clerk with the Titan's cap, helped me pick a black steel model with a magnetic latch. "You replacing the Crawford box?" he said. "I am replacing a lot of things," I said. He did not ask what I meant. He just rang me up and handed me the receipt. I installed the mailbox before sunset. Drilled new holes, set the post level, tightened every bolt. When I finished, I stood back and looked at it. My name was not on it yet. I had not bought the stick-on letters, but it was mine. The box, the post, the house, the street, the porch light burning steady as the sky turned orange and the crickets began. All of it, mine. And somewhere across town, 11 empty spaces on a screen, were proof that I had finally stopped being someone else's content. Loretta taught me how to grow lavender on a Tuesday afternoon in early April, 6 weeks after I moved to Lantern Hill Drive. I did not ask her to. She saw me standing in the backyard with a bag of topsoil and a look on my face that she later described as a man trying to read a book in a language he does not speak. She walked through the gap in the fence, the one I still had not repaired because it was the only way she came over without using the front door, and she said, "What are you doing, Howard?" "I'm going to plant something," I said. "What?" "I do not know yet." She looked at the bag of topsoil, then at the empty bed along the south side of the house where Margaret Crawford had once grown roses. The bed was bare now, just clay and dead roots and a rusted garden stake shaped like a butterfly. "What did your wife grow?" she said. "Lavender," I said. She grew lavender in a cold frame in Minneapolis. Every summer the whole south wall smelled like Provence. She had never been to Provence. She just liked saying the word. Loretta nodded like I had answered a question she had been holding for weeks. "Then you are going to grow lavender," she said. "And I am going to show you how. Because Tennessee clay is not Minnesota soil, and you will kill it in 2 weeks if you do it alone." She went home and came back with a wheelbarrow, a bag of perlite, a bag of coarse sand, 2 packets of English lavender seeds, and a pair of gardening gloves that were too small for my hands, but I wore them anyway because she handed them to me without asking my size. We worked for 3 hours. She showed me how to amend the clay with sand and perlite so the roots would not drown. She showed me how to mound the bed 6 inches higher than the surrounding ground so water would drain away instead of pooling. She showed me how to space the seeds 8 inches apart and press them in with the flat of my palm, not my fingers, because fingers push too deep and lavender wants to be close to the light. I listened to every word. I have spent 38 years listening to pipes and valves and pressure gauges, and I can tell you that Loretta talked about soil the way I talk about copper fittings. With respect, with certainty, with the quiet understanding that the thing you are working with has its own nature, and your job is not to fight it, but to help it do what it already wants to do. While we worked, she told me about Earl's garden. He had grown tomatoes, she said, the way some men build empires. 6 raised beds, each one named after a grandchild they never had. He watered them every morning at 5:45 before the sun got mean. When he died, she kept the beds going. Not because she loved tomatoes, but because the routine was the last piece of him that still had a schedule. "I understand that," I said. "I know you do," she said. "That is why I am showing you this." By the time we finished, the sun was dropping behind the roofline, and the mounded bed looked like a long brown wave running along the south wall. Loretta stood back and wiped her hands on her jeans. I stood beside her. We looked at the bed the way two people look at something they built together. Not with pride exactly, but with the quiet satisfaction of having done a thing that will outlast the afternoon. It will take about 3 weeks to sprout, she said. Do not overwater. Do not fuss. Lavender does not like to be fussed over. Sounds like Diane, I said. She looked at me and smiled. Not the big kind. The kind that starts at the corner of the mouth and stays there, like it has decided this is exactly where it belongs. That night I sat on the porch and called no one. I drank a cup of sourwood honey tea, and I watched the porch lights, mine and Loretta's, burning together like two old sentences that had finally found the same page. The phone rang at 9:14. I looked at the screen. Kyle. I held the phone for 4 rings. 5. 6. On the 7th ring, I answered. Dad, he said. His voice was thin. Not angry thin. Tired thin. The kind of thin that happens when a man has been carrying something heavy, and his arms have finally given out. Dad, I need to talk to you. I am listening, I said. There was a pause. Long enough for the crickets to fill it. Long enough for me to hear him breathe in, and breathe out, and breathe in again. I lost my job, he said. I closed my eyes. The porch light hummed above me. Loretta's light was still on next door. The lavender bed was dark and quiet along the south wall, holding seeds I could not see, waiting for something I could not rush. When? I said. 2 weeks ago, he said. They cut the whole division. 47 people. I did not want to tell you, because I did not want you to think I was calling, because I needed something. I sat with that sentence for a long time, because I did not want you to think I was calling because I needed something. That was Kyle. Even when he was drowning, he was worried about how the drowning looked. You do not have to need something to call me, I said. You just have to want to. He was quiet. Then he said, I want to. Okay, I said. Okay, he said. We stayed on the line for 11 more minutes. He told me about the layoff. 47 people. Entire marketing division. No severance, no warning. He told me Megan's channel was gone. All content removed. No income from that either. He told me they were behind on the mortgage by 1 month and would be behind by 2 in 3 weeks. He did not ask me for money. He did not mention the trademark. He did not say Megan's name more than once. When he hung up, I sat on the porch for another 20 minutes. The tea was cold. The crickets were loud. The lavender bed was still dark. I looked at Diane's photograph through the kitchen window, barely visible on the nightstand, and I said out loud to no one. He called. Megan came to my house on a Saturday morning, 9 days after Kyle's phone call. I was on my knees in the side yard, tightening a hose bib that had been weeping since the last hard frost. The washer was shot, a flat rubber disc the size of a dime that had cracked along the edge and let water seep in a thin line down the brick foundation. I had the replacement in my left hand and my father's wrench in my right when I heard a car door close in front of the house. I knew the sound. Not the car. The door. Megan closed car doors, the way she closed conversations, hard and final, like she wanted the air itself to know she had arrived. I stood up slow, wiped my hands on my jeans, walked around the corner of the house, and there she was, standing at the bottom of my porch steps in a white blouse and black jeans and sunglasses pushed up on her head like she was arriving at a brunch and not at the home of the man she had tried to turn into a brand. She looked thinner. Not sick thin. Stress thin. The kind of thin that happens when you stop eating regular meals and start replacing dinner with arguments and spreadsheets. Howard, she said. She had never called me Dad. Not once in 7 years. I had stopped expecting it around year 2. Megan, I said. She looked at the house. The fresh porch boards. The new mailbox. The clean windows. The mounded lavender bed along the south wall. Still just bare soil and invisible seeds, but neat and deliberate. She looked at all of it the way a person looks at a room they expected to find empty, and found furnished instead. "Can I come up?" she said. "It is a free porch," I said. She climbed the 3 steps and sat in the rocking chair on the left, the one with the wobble I had fixed 2 weeks ago. I sat in the other one. Between us was a small table I had built from scrap lumber, holding a jar of sourwood honey and 2 clean mugs. I had not set them out for her. I always kept 2 mugs there now. One for me. One for whoever showed up. Usually, Loretta. Today, not Loretta. We sat for a while without talking. The street was quiet. A mockingbird was going through its full catalog in the dogwood tree at the corner of the lot. Loretta's porch light was off, which meant she was out, probably at the farmer's market buying tomatoes she did not need because the habit was more important than the vegetable. "Howard," Megan said again, "I need to tell you something." "I am listening," I said. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, hands clasped. She stared at the porch floor like she was reading something written in the grain of the wood. "We are in trouble," she said. I waited. Kyle lost his job. You know that. But what you do not know is that I took out a second mortgage on the house 18 months ago. Before the videos. Before any of it. I used the money to start a production company. Equipment, software, studio rental. An editor I hired from Atlanta. I spent $45,000 in 4 months, and the company never made a cent. She stopped. Swallowed. Kept going. When the money ran out, I started the YouTube channel. I used what I had. The house. Kyle's projects. And then you moved in and you were fixing things every day, and people loved it, and I thought, this is it. This is the content that works. So I kept filming. I did not ask because I was afraid you would say no, and I could not afford no. The channel was the only income covering the gap between Kyle's salary and the second mortgage payment. I sat still. The rocking chair did not move. "Kyle does not know about the second mortgage," she said. "He does not know about the $45,000. He thinks the channel was a hobby that grew. He does not know it was a life raft." "Why are you telling me?" I said. "Because we are 2 months behind on the first mortgage now and 3 months behind on the second. Because I got a notice on Thursday. Because in 60 days, we lose the house. And because I have no one else to tell." She was not crying. Her voice was steady. The way a wire is steady, right before it snaps. I had heard that sound in pipes before. The high-pitched hum that means the pressure is too much and the fitting is 1/4 turn from failure. I looked at the sourwood honey on the table. I looked at the 2 clean mugs. I looked at the mockingbird in the dogwood tree, still singing like the world was exactly as it should be. "How much?" I said. "Total. First and second mortgage arrears. Penalties, legal fees. $62,000. The number sat between us like a stone dropped into still water. $62,000. I had $198,000 in savings. I had already spent $31,000 on this house and another $4,000 on repairs and furniture. That left me $163,000. I could write a check today and still have $101,000 left. Enough to live on for years if I was careful. And I am always careful. But I did not say yes. And I did not say no. I said, "Does Kyle know you are here?" She shook her head. "Does he know about the $62,000? No. Does he know about any of it? The second mortgage? The production company? The $45,000? No," she said. "He does not know any of it." I rocked the chair once. Twice. The mockingbird changed its song. "Then the first thing you need to do," I said, "is not ask me for money. The first thing you need to do is tell your husband the truth." She looked at me. Not angry. Not relieved. Something in between. Like a door that has been pushed open by wind and does not know yet whether to swing all the way or close again. "I am not saying no," I said. "I am saying not yet. And not like this. You tell Kyle everything. All of it. The second mortgage, the company, The 45,000, the 62,000. You sit him down at your kitchen table, and you say it out loud, with no camera, and no spreadsheet, and no ring light. And then, if he wants to, he calls me. Not you. Him. She sat back in the rocking chair. It did not wobble. I had fixed that. And if he is angry, she said. He will be, I said. That is what the truth costs. She stood up, smoothed her blouse, walked down the 3 steps, stopped at the bottom, and turned around. I am sorry about the videos, she said. I know, I said. She walked to her car, closed the door. Not hard this time. Quiet. Like she was trying not to wake something. I sat on the porch until the mockingbird stopped singing. Kyle called on a Wednesday evening, 4 days after Megan sat on my porch and closed the car door quiet. He did not say hello. He said, Dad, did you know? No, I said. She told me everything. The second mortgage. The production company. $45,000. She told me all of it last night at the kitchen table, and I sat there for 2 hours, and I did not say a word for the first 40 minutes because I could not figure out which part to be angry about first. I was standing in my kitchen on Lantern Hill, leaning against the counter next to my father's wrench set. The coffee was cold. The porch light was on. Through the window I could see Loretta's tomato beds, dark shapes against the fence line. How are you? I said. He laughed. Not the good kind. The kind that sounds like a cough and means the opposite of funny. I am unemployed, he said. My wife took out a secret mortgage on our house and lost $45,000 on a company I have never heard of. We owe $62,000 in back payments and fees. We have 60 days before the bank starts proceedings. And I just found out that the YouTube channel I thought was a hobby was actually the only thing keeping us from going under for the past year. He paused. So how am I? I am not great, Dad. I let the silence sit. Not because I did not know what to say. Because sometimes a man needs to hear his own words echo back at him before he can figure out what he actually feels. I learned that from Diane. She used to let me talk myself into circles until I found the center. Kyle, I said, I want you to come to dinner. Both of you. Saturday. 6 o'clock. My house. He was quiet for a long time. I heard something in the background. A door closing. Maybe Megan moving through the hallway. She is afraid you hate her, he said. I do not hate her. I said. I do not hate people who are scared. I have been scared. Your mother was scared every winter when the furnace made that sound. Your grandfather was scared every time the alarm went off at the station. Fear does not make someone bad. What they do with the fear is what matters. He exhaled slow. Saturday, he said. 6 o'clock, I said. I will make chili. You cannot make chili, Dad. I can make chili. Mom made the chili. You made toast. I will make chili, I said. And it will be fine. He almost laughed. Not quite. But almost. And that was enough. I spent the next 3 days preparing. Not just the chili. Although I did work on that. I found Diane's recipe card in a box I had not opened since Minneapolis, written in her handwriting on a yellow index card with a coffee stain in the top right corner and a note at the bottom that said, "More cumin than you think, Howard." I followed it exactly. I even bought the brand of canned tomatoes she preferred, the one with the Italian label that cost $2 more and tasted exactly the same but she swore was different. I also cleaned the house. Not because it was dirty, because I wanted them to see it clean. I wanted Kyle to walk in and see that his father had not fallen apart, that the porch boards were solid and the faucet did not drip and the windows were clear and the lavender bed along the south wall was beginning to show the first pale green shoots breaking through the soil. I wanted Megan to see it too. Not to punish her. To show her what a life built on honest money looks like. $163,000 in the bank, and a house that cost $31,000 and a wrench set on the counter and a photograph of my wife on the nightstand, and nothing borrowed and nothing hidden and nothing filmed. Without permission. On Friday evening, Loretta came through the gap in the fence carrying a pecan pie. "You are cooking tomorrow," she said. It was not a question. "I am making chili," I said. She looked at me the way she looked at her tomato plants when they needed staking, with concern and determination in equal measure. "Have you ever made chili, Howard?" Diane left a recipe. "That is not what I asked." "I have made chili-adjacent things," I said. "Soup, stew, meat sauce." She set the pie on my kitchen counter, opened the box I had not opened yet, the one with the spices, and pulled out the cumin. "More than you think," she said, reading the index card over my shoulder. "That is what it says." "She is right," Loretta said. "Diane is right. And you are going to practice tonight. I will taste. You will adjust. We will do this until it is correct." We spent 2 hours in the kitchen. Loretta sat on the stool by the window and directed me like a foreman on a job site. "More heat. Less water. Let it reduce. Do not stir so much. Chili is not soup, Howard. Chili has dignity. You have to let it sit and think about itself." By 10 o'clock, the pot was low and dark and thick, and it smelled like Diane's kitchen in November. I stood over it with a wooden spoon, and I did not move for a long time because the smell was so close to the original that it hurt in a way I had not expected. Loretta tasted it. She closed her eyes. She set down the spoon. "That is her chili," she said. "You did it." I did not say anything. I covered the pot and turned off the stove and washed my hands and stood at the sink, looking at the dark window. "Tomorrow," I said. "Tomorrow," she said. "And Howard." "Yes. Whatever happens at that table, you have already won. You know that, right?" I dried my hands on the towel and folded it twice and set it on the counter next to the wrench set. "I know," I said. I did not know. But I wanted to. And as Loretta had taught me, there is a difference. They arrived at 6:12. 12 minutes late. I know because I had been sitting at the kitchen table since 5:45 with the chili on low, the cornbread on a wire rack, and Diane's photograph turned slightly toward the wall because I did not want her watching me be nervous. Kyle's truck pulled into the driveway first. He sat in the cab for a full minute before he opened the door. I watched through the kitchen window. He was gripping the steering wheel with both hands, the way a man grips something when he is trying to decide whether to hold on or let go. Megan was in the passenger seat. She did not move until Kyle moved. They walked up the porch steps together, but not touching, not holding hands, not shoulder to shoulder. Two people arriving at the same place from different directions. I opened the front door before they knocked. Kyle looked at me. His eyes were red around the edges. Not from crying, from not sleeping. He was wearing a flannel shirt I recognized from 3 Christmases ago. The one Diane had picked out and wrapped in newspaper because she said gift wrap was a waste of money and trees. "Hey, Dad," he said. "Hey, son," I said. Megan stood one step behind him. She was holding a bottle of wine in both hands, gripping it the way she had gripped the iPad the night of the ultimatum, tight and deliberate. Except this time her hands were shaking. "I brought wine," she said. "I can see that," I said. "Come in." The house was warm. The chili was thick and dark, and filling every room with a smell that Kyle recognized before he saw the pot. He stopped in the hallway and inhaled, and his face did something I had not seen in a long time. It softened. The lines around his mouth let go. His shoulders dropped an inch. "That is Mom's chili," he said. "It is," I said. He did not say anything else. He just stood in the hallway, breathing it in. And for a moment, he was not a 38-year-old man with no job and a second mortgage he did not know about. He was a boy standing in a kitchen in Minneapolis, waiting for his mother to tell him dinner was ready. We sat at the table. 3 chairs. I had bought the third one at the same yard sale, where I found the rocking chair. $4, oak, a loose joint I fixed with wood glue and a clamp. The table was small. Our knees almost touched. The chili was in the center, the cornbread beside it, 3 bowls, 3 spoons, and the bottle of wine that Megan had opened with shaking hands while I pretended not to notice. Nobody spoke for the first few minutes. We ate. The chili was right. I knew it was right because Kyle closed his eyes on the second bite, and Megan ate without looking up. The way people eat when they are hungry and tired, and the food is warm, and they have forgotten what warm feels like. "Howard," Megan said. She set down her spoon. "This is really good." It was the first kind thing she had ever said to me in 7 years that did not have a camera behind it. "Thank you," I said. Kyle put down his spoon too. He looked at me across the small table with the overhead light making shadows under his eyes. "Dad," he said, "I know why you invited us. And I know you know everything. And I want you to know that I am not here to ask you for money." "I know," I said. He looked at Megan. She looked at the table. "But we are in trouble," he said. "Real trouble. And I do not know what to do. I have applied to 14 jobs in 3 weeks, and I have heard back from 2, and neither of them went past the first interview. Megan's channel is gone. The second mortgage payment is due in 19 days, and we do not have it. And I sat in that truck for a full minute before I came in, because I was ashamed to ask my father for help after what happened." "You did not ask," I said. "You came to dinner." He pressed his lips together hard. Megan spoke without lifting her eyes. "I took the mortgage out without telling him," she said. "I lost the money on a business that never existed past a laptop and a rented room in East Nashville. I filmed you without permission because I was desperate, and you were the only thing on that channel that people wanted to watch. And I filed a trademark on your name because I thought if I owned the brand, I could fix the debt." She stopped. "I was wrong," she said. "About all of it. Every single part." The kitchen was quiet. The chili settled in the pot with a low, slow sound. The porch light hummed through the window. Somewhere outside, Loretta's sprinkler kicked on. A soft mechanical ticking that sounded like a clock starting over. I looked at Megan. I had spent months being angry at this woman. I had spent weeks building a life without her in it. I had filed legal papers and taken down her videos and driven past her house without stopping. And now she was sitting at my table with wino-stained fingers and dark circles under her eyes telling me she was wrong. And the thing I felt was not satisfaction. It was recognition. "I know what it feels like to be desperate," I said. "I know what it feels like to make a bad decision because the good ones all look too slow. Your mother-in-law, my wife, she spent 40 years leaving the porch light on because she believed someone would always come home. She did not do it because it was smart. She did it because she was afraid of the dark. And she never told me that until the last year of her life." I paused. "I am not going to give you $62,000, I said. Kyle flinched. Megan did not move. "I am going to help you," I said. "But not with a check. Because a check does not fix what is broken here. A check just covers the leak. Until the next freeze." Kyle and Megan stared at me the way people stare at a doctor who has just said the word "but." I pushed my bowl to the side and put both hands flat on the table. The wood was smooth under my palms. Oak. Solid. The kind of surface that does not move when you press down on it. "Here is what I am going to do," I said. "First, I will call Richard Kessler on Monday morning. He is my attorney. He handled the DMCA filings and the trademark dispute. I will ask him to contact your mortgage lender and negotiate a forbearance on both loans. That means the bank agrees to pause or reduce payments for a set period, usually 3 to 6 months, while you get back on your feet. Richard is good at this. He will not charge you. He will charge me." Kyle opened his mouth. I held up one hand. "I am not finished," I said. "Second, I know a man named Russell Tate. We have been friends since 1989. He runs a property management company in East Nashville. 14 buildings. About 200 units. He always needs maintenance people. Plumbers, electricians, general repair. Kyle, you spent 2 summers helping me on jobs when you were in high school. You know how to sweat a copper joint. You know how to replace a flapper valve. You know how to reset a breaker without burning down a building. That is more than most people Russell hires. I will call him Monday, and ask if he has an opening. Kyle looked at me like I had pulled a rabbit out of a hat. Except the rabbit was a wrench, and the hat was 38 years of knowing how things work. It would not be marketing, I said. It would not be an office. It would be early mornings, and crawl spaces, and tenants who call you at midnight because the toilet is running. But it is honest work, and it pays steady. And Russell treats his people right. Kyle nodded. Slow. The nod of a man who is too proud to say thank you and too tired to say no. Third, I said. I looked at Megan. She had not moved since I started talking. Her wine glass was untouched. Her hands were flat on the table, mirroring mine, and I do not think she realized it. Megan, I said, you built a YouTube channel from nothing to 50,000 subscribers in less than a year. You filmed, edited, wrote titles, managed comments, and turned a 60-year-old plumber into a product with 4.5 million views. That is not a small thing. That is a skill. You did it wrong. You did it without permission and without honesty, and that is why we are sitting here. But the ability itself is real. She blinked. Twice. Like she had been expecting a sentence and received a paragraph. I want you to start a new channel, I said. A real one. With real permission. You are going to document home repairs. Not me. Not hidden cameras. Not anyone's name you do not own. You are going to film yourself learning how to fix things. A faucet. A door hinge. A leaking toilet. A fence post. I will teach you. Loretta will teach you the garden stuff. You will learn on camera. And people will watch because people love watching someone go from not knowing to knowing. That is the oldest story there is. She stared at me. You want me to start over, she said. I want you to start honest, I said. There is a difference. That line again. Loretta's line. Diane's line. It had become my line too. Somewhere between the chicken pot pie and the lavender bed and the 2 jars of sourwood honey on a Saturday morning. Megan looked at Kyle. Kyle looked at Megan. Something passed between them that I could not read. The private language of a marriage under pressure. The silent negotiation that happens when 2 people are deciding whether to fall apart or hold together. Kyle turned to me. Dad, he said. Why are you doing this? After everything. The videos. The trademark. The letter. Why? I thought about it. I thought about Diane leaving the porch light on for 40 years. I thought about my father running into a burning duplex on Portland Avenue. I thought about Loretta saying fixing things is how you love. I thought about a yellow index card that said more cumin than you think. Because you are my son, I said. And she is your wife. And this family broke in a place I know how to fix. Not with money. With work. With time. With showing up on a Tuesday morning and doing the thing that needs doing whether anyone thanks you or not. Kyle's jaw tightened. His eyes went red again. He looked at the chili pot on the table. The cornbread. The 3 bowls. The 3 spoons. Mom would have done the same thing, he said. No, I said. Your mother would have done it faster. She would have had the plan ready before you sat down. I needed 2 hours. And Loretta's help just to get the cumin right. He laughed. A real laugh. Short and rough. And wet at the edges. But real. Megan pressed her hand to her mouth and her shoulders shook once, and I could not tell if she was laughing or crying, and it did not matter, because sometimes those are the same thing. We sat at that table for another hour. I explained the details. Richard would call the lender Monday. Russell would meet Kyle Tuesday at the East Nashville office. Megan would start filming the following week, beginning with a kitchen faucet repair, the same one I had fixed my first morning on Lantern Hill. I would supervise. No trademark, no brand name. Just a woman, a wrench, and a camera she owned. When they left, it was past 9. Kyle shook my hand at the door and held it longer than a handshake needs to be held. Megan stopped on the second porch step and turned around. "Howard," she said. I waited. "Thank you for the chili," she said. It was not about the chili. We both knew that. But some things are easier to say when you wrap them in something small. "You are welcome," I said. I watched them drive away. Kyle's truck turned left at the end of Lantern Hill. The taillights disappeared behind the dogwood tree. The mockingbird was quiet. The sprinkler next door had stopped. I went inside and washed the 3 bowls and the 3 spoons and the chili pot. I dried them and set them on the counter next to my father's wrench set. Then I turned Diane's photograph back toward the room. "He came," I said to her. They both came. I called Richard Kessler at 7:55 on Monday morning because his office opens at 8, and I wanted to be the first voice he heard after his coffee. "Howard," he said. "You are early." "I am always early," I said. My father used to say, if you are on time, you are already late, and if you are late, you do not respect the person waiting. Richard listened while I explained the situation. Not all of it, just the parts he needed. Kyle lost his job. Megan took a second mortgage 18 months ago, without Kyle's knowledge. They are $62,000 behind on both mortgages. 60 days from foreclosure proceedings. I want you to call their lender and negotiate a forbearance. 3 to 6 months. Enough time for Kyle to start earning again. Richard was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Howard, you understand that I cannot guarantee the lender will agree. Forbearance is discretionary. They will want documentation, income, verification, a hardship letter. And the second mortgage complicates things because it was taken without spousal disclosure, which raises a separate legal issue." "I understand," I said. "And you are paying my fees for this." "I am." He paused again. "You are a good man, Howard. Most people in your position would let the house go and call it justice. Most people have not made Diane's chili at 10 o'clock on a Friday night with a neighbor directing them like a foreman," I said. He did not ask what that meant. Lawyers learn early not to ask questions they do not need the answers to. By noon, Richard had spoken to the lender's loss mitigation department. He called me back while I was replacing a section of copper pipe under Loretta's bathroom sink. She stood in the doorway eating a peach and watching me the way people watch someone do a thing they have done 10,000 times. "Good news and complicated news," Richard said. "The primary lender is open to a 6-month forbearance on the first mortgage. Payments reduced to interest only. Roughly $840 a month instead of the full $2,200. That buys time. The second mortgage is harder. The lender on that one is a smaller outfit, more aggressive. They want a lump sum payment of $12,000 within 30 days to pause proceedings. Without it, they move to foreclosure on their lien." "12,000, I said. 12,000. He said. I lay on my back under Loretta's sink and looked at the pipe joint I had just soldered. Clean. Bright. Sealed tight. No leak. "Tell them I will guarantee the 12,000, I said. "My personal guarantee. Put it in writing." "Howard," Richard said. "Are you sure?" "I am sure," I said. Loretta looked at me from the doorway. She did not say anything. She took another bite of the peach and waited until I hung up. 12,000, she said. "You were listening," I said. "I was standing 3 feet away, Howard." A deaf woman in a windstorm could have listened. I slid out from under the sink and sat on the bathroom floor with my back against the cabinet. The tile was cool. The copper smelled like solder and heat. "I am not giving them the money," I said. "I am guaranteeing it. If Kyle starts working and they make the payments, I never write the check. The guarantee is a bridge. It holds weight while they build something underneath it." She considered this. "And if they do not make the payments, then I write the check," I said. "And I have 12,000 less and a lesson about bridges." She finished the peach, wrapped the pit in a paper towel, and set it on the counter. "Earl loaned his brother $9,000 in 2004, she said. "His brother bought a fishing boat. The boat sank in Kentucky Lake 8 months later. Earl never got a cent back. What did Earl do? I said. He went to the funeral. She said. The boat's funeral. His brother actually held a funeral for a boat. Earl stood on the dock in a suit and tie and watched a grown man cry over a 19-foot bass tracker, and he never mentioned the money again. That is either the saddest story or the funniest story I have ever heard, I said. It is both, she said. That is how you know it is true. She helped me clean up the tools, and we walked back to my porch through the gap in the fence. The lavender bed was greening now, thin stalks pushing up through the amended soil, reaching for the light the way new things do when they have been given the right conditions and left alone. I called Russell Tate at 2 o'clock. Russell answered on the first ring because Russell always answers on the first ring. He is the kind of man who believes a ringing phone is a problem waiting to become an emergency. Russell, I said. I have a favor. Howard Beckett, he said. I have not heard your voice since you moved down here. How is Nashville treating you? Better than Minneapolis, I said. Less snow. More pie. I told him about Kyle. Not the family details, just the professional ones. 38 years old. Former marketing manager. But he spent 2 summers doing maintenance work with me in high school. He can sweat a joint. He can replace a valve. He can troubleshoot a breaker panel. He learns fast and he does not complain. Russell was quiet for 3 seconds, which for Russell was a long deliberation. I have a building on Shelby Avenue, he said. 24 units. My last maintenance guy quit 2 weeks ago because he said the tenants were too demanding. The tenants are fine. The guy was lazy. I need someone who shows up and does not make excuses. Can your boy do that? He can, I said. Send him to my office tomorrow morning. Russell said. 8 o'clock. Not 8:15. 8 o'clock. He will be there, I said. I hung up and sat on the porch. 2 calls. One morning. A forbearance on the first mortgage. A guarantee on the second. A job waiting on Shelby Avenue. None of it cost me $62,000. All of it cost me something harder. Trust. The decision to believe that the people who hurt you can also be the people worth helping. I texted Kyle one line. Russell Tate. Tate Property Management. 412. Shelby Avenue. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Wear boots. He texted back 14 seconds later. One word. Thanks. I put the phone down, picked up a jar of sourwood honey, unscrewed the lid, tasted it with a clean spoon. Sweet and dark and heavy, with something I could not name but recognized. The porch light was on. Loretta's porch light was on. The lavender was growing. The pipe under her sink was sealed. And somewhere across town my son was putting on boots he had not worn in 15 years. That is what Monday morning looks like when you stop being angry and start being useful. Kyle showed up at Russell Tate's office at 7:48 on Tuesday morning. I know because Russell called me at 8:15 and said, "Your boy was early. I like him already." Russell put Kyle on a probationary crew with a senior technician named Douglas, a 53-year-old former Marine who had been with Tate Property Management for 11 years and who, according to Russell, could fix a furnace blindfolded, and once replaced an entire bathroom subfloor during his lunch break because he did not like leaving a job open overnight. Kyle's first assignment was a leaking kitchen faucet in Unit 14 of the Shelby Avenue building. A dripping faucet. The same repair I had done my first morning on Lantern Hill. The same repair Diane had watched me do 100 times in Minneapolis while she stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and said, "You love that wrench more than you love me." And I would say, "The wrench does not argue about the thermostat," and she would throw a dish towel at my head. Kyle called me Tuesday evening. His voice sounded different. Not lighter exactly. Thicker. The way a voice sounds when it has been used all day for real things instead of meetings and conference calls and slide presentations. "I fixed a faucet," he said. "I know," I said. Douglas watched me the whole time. He did not say a word until I was done. Then he said, "Not bad. Do it again faster." "That sounds like Douglas," I said, even though I had never met the man. "Dad," Kyle said, "I was on my hands and knees under a kitchen sink today. My back hurts. My knees hurt. There was a roach, the size of a quarter, under the pew top, and the tenant stood behind me the entire time telling me her last maintenance guy never showed up and asking if I was going to be the same." "What did you tell her?" I said. "I told her I would be back on Thursday to check the seal," he said. "And then I went to the next unit and replaced a garbage disposal." I smiled. He could not see it, but I think he heard it. The first week Kyle worked 5 days, 42 hours. He fixed 11 things: 3 faucets, 2 garbage disposals, a running toilet, a stuck window, a faulty outlet, a dryer vent clogged with lint so thick Douglas said it looked like a small animal had moved in and decorated. Kyle came home with sore hands and grease under his fingernails and a paycheck that was less than half what he had earned in marketing, but arrived on Friday without a single meeting attached to it. He called me every evening. Not long calls. 5 minutes. Sometimes 7. He told me what he fixed. I told him what I fixed. 2 men on 2 porches talking about pipes and valves and the particular satisfaction of turning a wrench until the drip stops, and the silence that follows is the cleanest sound in the world. On Wednesday of the second week, Megan called me. Not Kyle. Megan. "Howard," she said. I set up the camera. "What camera?" I said. I knew what camera, but I wanted her to say it. "The channel," she said. "I bought a tripod and a ring light. Not the old one, a new one. And I filmed myself replacing the washer in our kitchen faucet. Kyle showed me how on Sunday. I did it 3 times before I got it right. The first time I stripped the valve seat. The second time I forgot to turn off the water supply and sprayed myself in the face. The third time, it worked." She paused. "I posted it this morning," she said. "No brand name, no trademark. Just my name. Megan learns to fix things. 12 minutes. 47 views so far." 47, I said. She was quiet. "That is 47 people who watched you do something honest," I said. "That is 47 more than most people get on their first day of being real." She made a sound on the other end of the line that was either a laugh or the beginning of a cry that she caught before it landed. "Howard," she said. "Yes." "I sprayed myself in the face," she said. "On camera. And I left it in." "Good," I said. "People do not want perfect. People want true." She thanked me and hung up. I sat on the porch with the phone in my lap and watched Loretta's sprinkler arc across her tomato beds in the fading light. The lavender along my south wall was 6 inches tall now. Thin green stalks with gray-o-green leaves that smelled like nothing yet, but promised everything. Loretta came through the fence gap, carrying 2 plates of fried catfish and coleslaw. "You are smiling," she said. "That is suspicious." "Megan started her channel," I said. She sprayed herself in the face with a kitchen faucet and posted it. Loretta set the plates on the porch table and sat in her rocking chair. "Good," she said. "Humility is the best first episode." We ate catfish and watched the street go dark. A couple walked past with a golden retriever. A kid rode a bicycle with no hands and a confidence that only comes from not yet knowing what falling feels like. The porch lights burned steady, mine and hers. 2 points of warmth on a street that was beginning to feel less like a place I had moved to and more like a place I had arrived at. "Howard," Loretta said. "Yes." "Your lavender is going to bloom in about 3 weeks," she said. "Late for the season, but it will come." I looked at the bed. 6 inches of green. Silent. Patient. Growing in soil that was not its first home, but had been made right. "Diane would have liked this street," I said. Loretta rocked slow. "I think she already does," she said. I did not ask what she meant by that. Some things you do not need to understand to believe. The lavender bloomed on a Thursday morning in the second week of May. 3 months after I moved to Lantern Hill Drive. I did not see it happen. That is how growing works. You do the soil. You do the water. You do the waiting. And then one morning you walk outside with your coffee, and the south wall is purple and the air smells like a country your wife never visited but named. Every summer when she leaned over her cold frame in Minneapolis and closed her eyes and whispered the word Provence like it was a prayer she had memorized in a language she did not speak. I stood in the yard for a long time. The coffee went cold. I did not care. The stalks were thin and upright, and the flowers were small, tight clusters of violet blue that looked almost gray in the early light. Not chauve. Not loud. The kind of beautiful that requires you to be still before it lets you see it. Loretta found me standing there at 7:15. She came through the fence gap in her garden boots and her buttery-colored cardigan, and she stood beside me without saying a word. We looked at the lavender, the way two people look at something they built together and did not know would work until it did. She bloomed, Loretta said. She did, I said. Neither of us was talking about the plant. That same week, 2 other things bloomed that I did not expect. The first was Kyle. Russell Tate called me on Wednesday afternoon while I was replacing a section of gutter on the east side of my house. Howard, he said, I am giving your boy a raise. He has been here 5 weeks. He has not missed a day. He has not been late once. Douglas says he is the best hire in 3 years, and Douglas does not compliment people. He once told a man his soldering was acceptable, and the man framed the work order. How much? I said. 18 an hour, up from 15, Russell said. And I am putting him on the Germantown building next month. 36 units, more responsibility. More money later, if he keeps it up. I thanked Russell and hung up and sat on the gutter ladder for a minute looking at the street. Kyle was earning. Not much. Not what he used to make. But earning. With his hands. With skills I had taught him 20 years ago in a basement in Minneapolis while Diane made pot roast upstairs and the radio played oldies and the snow piled up outside like the world was trying to bury us and we just kept working. The second thing that bloomed was Megan's channel. She called me on Friday evening. Her voice was different. Not the voice from the ultimatum night, sharp and transactional. Not the voice from my porch, thin and desperate. This voice was steady and surprised. The way a person sounds when they have discovered something about themselves they did not know was there. Howard, she said. The faucet video hit 10,000 views. I set down my sourwood honey tea. 10,000, I said. 10,400. She said. And the comments. Howard, the comments. People are writing things like, "This is the most honest thing I have seen on this app." And I cried when she sprayed herself, because that is exactly what would happen to me. And one woman wrote, I am 53, and I have never fixed anything in my house, and this video made me want to try. She paused. I posted a second video yesterday, she said. Replacing a toilet flapper. Kyle taught me. I did it in one take. No mistakes. And you know what the comments said? What? They said they missed the mistakes, she said. They said the first video was better because I was learning. So I am going to keep making mistakes. On purpose. Not fake ones. I am going to film things I have never done and let the camera see me figure it out. I smiled into the phone. That is the smartest thing you have ever said to me, I said. She was quiet for a moment. I learned it from you, she said. You told me people do not want perfect. They want true. I did say that, I said. You were right, she said. And I am sorry it took me this long to hear it. That evening, Loretta and I sat on the porch, and I told her about Kyle's raise and Megan's 10,000 views. She listened the way she always listened. Rocking slow, tea in hand, eyes on the street like she was reading a book, only she could see. Howard, she said. Yes. Do you remember what I said the night before the dinner? The night we made the chili. You said whatever happens at that table I have already won, I said. She nodded. I was wrong, she said. I looked at her. You had not won yet, she said. You have won now. Not because of the money, or the job, or the channel, because you chose to fix something that most people would have walked away from. And it worked. Not because you are smarter than everyone else, because you are more patient. She took a sip of her tea. And because you had good soil, she said. You had Diane. You had your father's wrench set. You had 40 years of practice at showing up. Most people do not have that. You did. And you used it. I looked at the lavender along the south wall, purple and gray and steady in the evening light. The porch light was on. Loretta's porch light was on. The street was quiet except for the mockingbird in the dogwood tree, running through its songs like it was trying to find the one that fit the moment. I thought about calling Kyle. This time I did. He answered on the second ring. Hey, Dad, he said. The lavender bloomed, I said. He was quiet for a beat. Then he said, Mom would have loved that. She does, I said. And I meant it the way Loretta meant it 3 weeks ago when she said the same thing about the street. Not as fact. Not as faith. As something in between. Something that lives in the space where missing someone and feeling them close are not opposites, but the same thing seen from different porches. 6 months after I moved to Lantern Hill Drive, Richard Kessler called me on a Monday afternoon and said 4 words I had been waiting to hear. The trademark is dead, he said. The United States Patent and Trademark Office had ruled in my favor. The registration of Grandpa Fixes Everything under Megan Elise Beckett's name was canceled on the grounds of unauthorized use of a living individual's identity and likeness without written consent. Richard said the ruling was clean. No appeal filed. No contest from Megan's side. She had signed the withdrawal herself 3 weeks earlier, without telling me. I thanked Richard. He said, Howard, in 31 years of practicing law, you are the first client who solved a family crisis with a wrench and a pot of chili. I told him I also used cumin. He said goodbye. I hung up and sat at the kitchen table. The wrench set was on the counter. The photograph of Diane was on the nightstand in the bedroom, turned toward the room the way it had been since the night Kyle and Megan came for dinner. The house was quiet. The faucet did not drip. The porch boards did not creak. The lavender outside the south wall was in full bloom, thick and purple and alive, filling the kitchen with a scent that came through the screen door like a visitor who did not need to knock. I poured a cup of coffee and walked outside. Loretta was on her porch. Rocking chair, tea, butter-o-colored cardigan. The same one she wore the first night, the night of the chicken pot pie. She looked at me and knew before I said anything. It is done, she said. It is done, I said. She raised her teacup. I raised my coffee mug. We toasted across the fence line without clinking because the distance between our porches was exactly the right distance, close enough to matter and far enough to breathe. That evening, Kyle and Megan came for dinner. Not because I invited them, because they wanted to. Kyle brought cornbread he had baked himself, using a recipe he found in Diane's box, written on the back of a grocery receipt from 1997. Megan brought her camera, not to film me, to film the lavender. She knelt in the garden bed and held the lens 6 inches from the blooms and filmed for 2 minutes without saying a word. When she stood up, her knees were dirty and her eyes were wet. This is going to be the thumbnail, she said. For the channel. If that is okay. I looked at the lavender. Diane's lavender. Growing in Tennessee clay that had been amended with sand and perlite and patience by a woman named Loretta, who understood that some things need to be shown how to live in new soil. It is okay, I said. We ate at the kitchen table. 4 chairs now. I had built the 4th one myself from scrap oak, and a design I found in a library book. It wobbled slightly. Loretta sat in it and did not complain. Kyle talked about work. He had been at Tate Property Management for 4 months. Russell had moved him to the Germantown building, 36 units, and Kyle had not missed a day. His hands were rough now. His fingernails were never fully clean. He ate the way a man eats when he has earned the meal, steady and grateful and without looking at his phone. Megan talked about the channel. Megan Learns to Fix Things had 22,000 subscribers. Her most popular video was the original, the kitchen faucet. The one where she sprayed herself in the face. 412,000 views. She had been contacted by a tool company about a small sponsorship. She had not accepted yet because she wanted to make sure it was a company that made honest tools. Her words, not mine. Loretta talked about Earl. A new story. The time he tried to install a ceiling fan and ended up hanging from the bracket by his belt loop for 6 minutes until she came home from the grocery store and found him spinning slowly counterclockwise. She told it with the timing of a woman who had been saving the story for the right table. We laughed. All four of us. The kind of laughter that fills a small kitchen and bounces off the walls and settles into the wood and stays there. After dinner, Kyle and Megan left at 9:30. Kyle hugged me at the door. Not a handshake this time. A hug. The kind where a grown man puts his arms around his father and holds on for 4 seconds longer than usual, because 4 seconds is the difference between polite and real. "Dad," he said. "Thank you." "For what?" I said. "For not giving up on us," he said. "I did not give up on you," I said. "I just moved 12 minutes away and made you come to me." He laughed. Megan smiled. They walked down the porch steps and got in the truck. Kyle started the engine. Megan rolled down the window. "Howard," she said. "Yes." "The porch light looks beautiful," she said. They drove away. The taillights turned left at the dogwood tree and disappeared the way they had disappeared once before, except this time they were driving towards something instead of away from it. Loretta stood on her porch. "Good night, Howard," she said. "Good night, Loretta," I said. She went inside. Her porch light stayed on. I sat in the rocking chair, the one with the wobble I had fixed. The mockingbird sang in the dogwood tree. The lavender moved in the evening air. The coffee was cold, but I drank it anyway. Because sometimes cold coffee on a warm night is exactly right. I looked at the porch light above my head. A single bulb. 60 watts. Nothing special. The same kind of bulb Diane had screwed in every autumn for 40 years, in a house in Minneapolis that I sold to a stranger and left behind with 9 boxes and a photograph and a wrench set and $198,000. And a heart that was broken in a place I did not know how to fix. But I fixed it. Not with money. Not with anger. Not with revenge. With time. With work. With showing up on an ordinary morning and doing the next thing that needed doing. With a neighbor who brought chicken pot pie and taught me how to grow lavender in soil that was not mine. With a son who put on boots he had not worn in 15 years. With a daughter-in-law who sprayed herself in the face on camera and left it in because she finally understood that truth is not a brand. It is a practice. My name is Howard Beckett. I am 68 years old. I am a retired plumber. My father died saving strangers. My wife died on the coldest night in January. My son works with his hands now. His wife films herself learning. And I sit on this porch every evening with the light on because that is what Diane did, and that is what I do, and that is what the people you love teach you to keep doing even after they are gone. Some people will only see you as content. Remember that. But also remember this. You are not content. You are not a brand. You are not a spreadsheet, or a thumbnail, or a ring light in a living room. You are the thing you fix. You are the meal you make. You are the lights you leave on. And if you are very lucky, someone will sit on the porch next to yours and see that light and know exactly what it means. I finished my coffee. I set the mug on the table. I looked at the street, quiet and dark, except for 2 porch lights burning steady on Lantern Hill Drive. And for the first time in a long time, I was home.